Have you ever wondered why the more you give, the less you seem to receive? Why does kindness, instead of drawing people closer, sometimes push them away? There is a strange paradox in human nature, one that has puzzled great thinkers for centuries. We are taught that kindness is a virtue, that generosity is noble, that being understanding will earn us respect. But in reality, too much kindness often leads to the opposite: disrespect, manipulation, and even betrayal. Why? Why does the world punish those who give freely? Why do those who seek to be good often find themselves ignored, taken for granted, or even mistreated? The answer lies deep within the very essence of human psychology, power dynamics, and an uncomfortable truth that many refuse to accept. Kindness, when given without boundaries, breeds contempt. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, ruled the most powerful empire on earth with wisdom and strength, yet he never allowed his kindness to become a weakness. Seneca warned against pleasing everyone, for a man who seeks only to be liked will find himself enslaved by the expectations of others. Even Epictetus, once a slave himself, knew that true freedom comes not from seeking approval, but from mastering one's own mind. If you have ever felt that your kindness is being used against you, if you have ever been overlooked despite your goodwill, if you have ever been left wondering why people fail to appreciate your efforts, then listen closely. This is not just a lesson in philosophy. This is a wake-up call. In this video, we will uncover 6 profound reasons why your kindness makes people lose respect for you. Not surface-level cliches, but deep, psychological and philosophical truths that most people never realize until it's too late. But be warned, what you are about to hear may change how you see yourself and the world. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every like, subscribe helps us continue our mission of sharing knowledge. And leave a comment below and share your opinion on these reasons, or tell me which one resonates with you the most. Ready to unlock more wisdom? Let's get started. Reason 1. Kindness without strength is seen as weakness. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness, not because it lacks value, but because of how it is perceived in a world that respects power. Imagine a man who always seeks to help others, who never raises his voice, who forgives endlessly, who sacrifices his own needs for the comfort of those around him. He believes that his kindness will be recognized, that people will see the depth of his heart and cherish his goodwill. But over time, something strange happens. The very people he helps begin to take him for granted. His words carry less weight. His generosity, once appreciated, is now expected. His presence, once comforting, becomes almost invisible. Why? Because in the eyes of others he has no edge. He poses no challenge. He demands no respect. This is the brutal reality of human nature. People respect what they fear losing. A man who is kind but also strong, who has boundaries, who can say no, who carries the ability to be firm but chooses compassion, is respected. But a man who is only kind, who never asserts himself, who never shows that he has the power to push back if needed, becomes disposable. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, ruled Rome with wisdom and patience. But he was never weak. He fought wars. He made difficult decisions. He understood that ruling with justice did not mean being soft, but being firm when necessary. Seneca put it clearly: a sword is never sheathed until it has first secured peace. Kindness is like a sword. It only holds value if people believe it comes from a place of strength. A man who is only kind but never firm is like an unsheathed sword that has never seen battle, beautiful but useless. In your own life, reflect on how people react to your kindness. Do they appreciate it, or do they assume it is simply who you are, with no effort on your part? Do they respect your generosity, or do they exploit it because they know you will never resist? The world does not respect kindness that has no backbone. This is why people mistreat the overly kind. They know, consciously or unconsciously, that there will be no consequences. They know you will smile through the disrespect. They know you will not fight back. To change this, you must transform the way your kindness is perceived. Do not be only kind. Be kind and strong. Make it clear that your kindness is a choice, not a default setting. Make people understand that while you prefer peace, you are not afraid of confrontation. That while you are generous, you will not tolerate disrespect. A lion that chooses not to attack is still feared. A man who is strong but kind is respected. But But a man who is only kind, he is forgotten, he is overlooked, and in the worst cases, he is destroyed. Reason 2. People value what they struggle to obtain. There is a simple truth about human nature that few people dare to acknowledge. We do not appreciate what comes too easily. Consider the things you value most in your life. They are likely the things you worked for, the things that challenged you, the things you had to sacrifice to obtain. A man who has built his wealth from nothing guards it carefully. A man who has earned respect through discipline will not allow it to be taken lightly. A man who has faced hardship and conquered it carries himself differently than one who has never struggled. Now think about how this applies to human relationships. When kindness is given freely, without effort, without condition, without making the other person feel as though they must earn it, its value diminishes. Imagine two men. One offers his friendship, his time, his energy to everyone without hesitation. He gives endlessly, asks for nothing, and makes himself available at all times. The other is selective. He offers his time only to those who respect it. He gives, but with intention. His kindness is not automatic. It is something others feel they must earn. Which of these two men do people respect more? The answer is obvious. People respect what is scarce, what they have to work for, what they feel they must prove themselves worthy of. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus, who was once a slave, did not waste his words on those who would not value them. He believed that wisdom, like all valuable things, must be sought, not simply given. He taught that a man should show, not tell, not plead for respect, but embody it so fully that others have no choice but to recognize it. Seneca echoed this wisdom. If you would be loved, love yourself first. A man who values himself does not give himself away easily. He does not pour his kindness into hands that do not appreciate it. He does not chase people, nor does he offer himself freely to those who have not shown they deserve his time and energy. This is not about playing games. It is about self-respect. If you find that people take your kindness for granted, ask yourself, have you made them earn it? Or have you handed it out like loose change, expecting people to recognize its worth? This is the uncomfortable truth. People do not value kindness that is freely given. They value what they must work for. They cherish what is rare. They respect what is not easily obtained. This is why kings do not dine with beggars. This is why great warriors are honored, while those who serve without question are forgotten. This is why the man who holds himself with quiet confidence commands a room, while the one who pleads for attention is ignored. If you want your kindness to be respected, do not offer it cheaply. Make sure it is earned. Make sure it is given with intention, not desperation. Because the moment people feel they can have your kindness without effort, they will no longer see it as kindness, they will see it as weakness. And they will treat you accordingly. Reason 3. People test boundaries to see what they can get away with. There is a hidden game in human relationships, one that most people play instinctively, often without realizing it. It is the game of testing limits. People, whether they admit it or not, will always push to see how far they can go. They will subtly probe to discover where the lines are drawn, where resistance begins and where tolerance ends. This is not necessarily out of malice. It is simply human nature. Children do it with their parents, testing how much they can misbehave before consequences arise. Employees do it with their bosses, seeing what rules can be bent without repercussions. Friends do it with each other, gauging what they can take without giving back. And yes, even strangers do it, assessing who will assert themselves and who will allow themselves to be walked over. If you are excessively kind, if you always say yes, if you never object, if you accept behavior that disrespects you, then you are silently communicating one dangerous message: I have no boundaries. And once people realize this, they will take advantage of it. Not necessarily because they are cruel, but because they can. Think of a river. It flows freely, bending and twisting, adjusting to everything in its path. But what happens when there is no solid ground to contain it? It spreads too thin. It loses its strength. It becomes something weak and directionless. Now think of a man with no boundaries. He allows everyone to step on him. He accepts mistreatment without protest. He thinks his kindness will earn him respect, but instead he becomes a doormat. People stop asking for his permission because they assume he will always comply. They stop considering his feelings because they have learned he will never push back. This is why in every culture, the most respected individuals are not those who are endlessly agreeable, but those who command respect through their presence and actions. Marcus Aurelius, despite being one of the most compassionate emperors in history, did not allow himself to be taken advantage of. He ruled with both wisdom and discipline. He knew that being kind did not mean being soft, and that setting boundaries was not an act of cruelty, but of self-respect. Seneca warned against trying to please everyone, saying, "You will never be able to make everyone your friend. If you try, you will lose yourself in the process." A man without boundaries is a man who is not truly himself. If you find yourself constantly being disrespected despite your kindness, ask yourself, where have I failed to draw the line? Have you allowed people to take advantage of your time, your energy, your generosity? Have you said yes when you should have said no? Have you avoided confrontation out of fear of losing approval? Because make no mistake, if you do not set boundaries, others will set them for you, and they will not be in your favor. A man who is respected is not necessarily the loudest, the strongest, or the most feared. He is simply the man who knows where he stands, and who makes sure that others know it too. So if you want your kindness to be respected, do not let it be mistaken for endless availability. Set your limits. Stand your ground. Let people see that while you are kind, you are not a man to be tested. Because in the game of human nature, those who refuse to draw boundaries will always be the first to be walked over. Reason 4. People confuse familiarity with lack of value. There is a cruel irony in human nature. The more available something is, the less it is valued. This applies to wealth, to opportunities, to experiences, but most of all, to people. When something is rare, people cherish it. When it is abundant, they overlook it. Think about the things that people desperately chase: power, status, luxury. These things are not necessarily more valuable than kindness or sincerity, yet they are treated with reverence because they are perceived as difficult to obtain. Now consider the things that are freely available: comfort, stability, loyalty. These things are far more meaningful, yet they are often dismissed, taken for granted, or ignored. This is why kindness, when given too freely, loses its impact. The more accessible you are, the less people feel the need to appreciate you. Imagine a man who is always there when needed. He answers every call, supports every request, forgives every offense. He believes that by being ever present, he will earn love and respect. But over time, something strange happens. People stop noticing his efforts. His presence becomes expected, his sacrifices unacknowledged. Why? Because he has made himself too familiar. He has removed the sense of rarity from his kindness, and in doing so, he has unknowingly stripped it of its value. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "If one oversteps the bounds of moderation, the greatest pleasures cease to please." The same is true of human relationships. When kindness is endless, it ceases to feel like a gift and starts to feel like an obligation. When a person is always available, their presence is no longer treasured, it is assumed. This is why people chase what they cannot easily have. It is why they admire those who do not seek validation. It is why they respect those who, rather than handing out kindness freely, give it sparingly and with intention. Consider how powerful individuals carry themselves. They do not seek to be liked. They do not make themselves too available. They do not pour their time into those who do not respect it. Their presence alone holds weight because it is not something given to just anyone. Now ask yourself, have you made your kindness too familiar? Have you given it without making people earn it? Have you allowed your presence to become something that is assumed rather than appreciated? If so, it is time to change. Do not withhold kindness, but do not hand it out carelessly either. Make it something that must be valued. Give it to those who deserve it, not to those who expect it. Let your absence be felt so that your presence is appreciated. Because the moment people feel they can have your kindness without effort, they will no longer see it as a gift. They will see it as nothing. Reason 5. Kindness without self-respect invites exploitation. There is a dangerous illusion that many fall into, the belief that if you are good to others, they will naturally be good to you in return. That kindness, if given endlessly, will eventually be recognized and reciprocated. But the world does not work this way. The truth is, kindness that is not backed by self-respect does not inspire gratitude. It invites exploitation. People are drawn to strength, to those who stand firm, to those who demand respect in their words and actions. When kindness is given without the foundation of self-respect, it is not seen as a noble virtue. It is seen as submission. It is seen as weakness. Consider two men. One is generous, always willing to help, yet he carries himself with dignity. He is kind, but his kindness is not unlimited. He gives, but only where it is appreciated. He does not tolerate disrespect. When someone oversteps, he corrects them without hesitation. The other man is also generous, always willing to help, but he lacks boundaries. He allows himself to be mistreated without speaking up. He assumes that if he continues to be kind, people will eventually change and treat him with respect. But instead, they use him. They see that he does not stand up for himself, and so they push further, taking more and more, knowing there will be no consequences. Who do you think commands more respect? Seneca once said, "He who is overly concerned with being liked will never be respected." And this is the very mistake many kind people make. They believe that being liked is the same as being valued. They believe that if they tolerate mistreatment with patience, people will recognize their goodness. But in reality, people recognize what you allow. If you do not value yourself, they will not value you either. This is why some of the most respected individuals in history were not the ones who sought approval, but the ones who demanded respect. Marcus Aurelius was known for his wisdom and fairness, but he was never passive. He ruled an empire with both kindness and authority. He knew that to lead with compassion, he must first command respect. The same applies to you. If you give without limits, people will take without shame. If you allow disrespect, people will assume it is acceptable. If you do not assert your worth, no one else will do it for you. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not cruelty. It is simply an understanding that your kindness is valuable and that not everyone deserves it. It is knowing when to walk away, when to say no, and when to stand firm in your worth. Ask yourself, has my kindness come at the cost of my self-respect? Have I allowed others to treat me in ways I would never treat them? Have I mistaken tolerance for virtue? Because kindness without self-respect is not kindness at all. It is self-betrayal. And those who betray themselves will always be betrayed by others. Reason 6. People follow power, not kindness alone. The world does not revolve around kindness. It revolves around power, not just physical strength, but the power of presence, of confidence, of unwavering self-assurance. Kindness, when combined with power, is respected. But kindness alone? It is often overlooked, dismissed, or even despised. This is a truth that many struggle to accept because it goes against the idealized belief that goodness should be enough. That if you are kind, people will automatically admire you. That if you are generous, people will recognize your value. But reality tells a different story. Look at history. The men who are remembered, the men who shaped the world, were not simply good. They were powerful. They had conviction, they had control, they had presence. Marcus Aurelius was a philosopher, but he was also an emperor. Seneca was a thinker, but he was also an advisor to rulers. Epictetus was a teacher, but he commanded the respect of men in power. None of these men were just kind. They understood that without power, kindness is fragile. Now consider how this applies to your life. Have you ever seen someone who is kind to everyone, yet ignored? Someone who always offers help, yet is never truly valued? Someone who sacrifices for others, yet is treated as if they do not matter? And on the other hand, have you seen people who are respected, who are listened to, who walk into a room and command attention, not because they seek approval, but because their presence demands it? The difference is power. People may appreciate kindness, but they follow strength. They admire those who hold themselves with confidence. They respect those who do not need validation. They listen to those who speak with authority, not desperation. This is why a man who is only kind, who relies on goodness alone to earn respect, often finds himself frustrated. He wonders why people ignore his efforts, why they do not appreciate all that he gives, why they seem to gravitate towards those who are not even as good-hearted as he is. The answer is simple: because the world is not built on kindness alone. To be respected, kindness must be accompanied by strength. It must be backed by confidence, by an unshakable belief in oneself. A man who is kind but lacks presence will be overlooked. A man who is powerful but unkind may be feared but never truly admired. But a man who has both, he is unstoppable. Seneca once said, "A good character, when supported by strength, is truly unbreakable." This is the key. It is not about abandoning kindness, but about strengthening it, about carrying yourself in a way that makes people take notice, about showing the world that your kindness is not a weakness, but a choice backed by confidence, by control, by an undeniable inner power. So ask yourself, have I relied too much on kindness alone? Have I expected people to respect me simply because I'm good to them? Have I neglected the power that must accompany kindness for it to be truly valued? Because the truth is, people do not follow kindness, they follow power. And if your kindness is not paired with strength, you will not be respected. You will be forgotten. Final thoughts. Kindness without wisdom invites disrespect. Kindness is a beautiful thing. It is one of the highest virtues a man can embody. But kindness without wisdom, without strength, without boundaries, it is not kindness at all. It is self-sabotage. The harsh truth is this: the world does not reward kindness that is given without thought. It rewards those who command respect. It rewards those who give with intention, not desperation. It rewards those who are kind, but only when that kindness is backed by self-worth. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius ruled with wisdom, but he never allowed himself to be taken for granted. Seneca spoke of virtue, but he never allowed himself to be used. Epictetus taught resilience, because he knew that without it, kindness becomes a weakness rather than a strength. If you have ever felt that your kindness has led to disrespect, ask yourself, have I given too freely, expecting appreciation instead of demanding respect? Have I allowed others to take advantage of my generosity without requiring them to earn it? Have I confused being agreeable with being respected? Have I mistaken being liked for being valued? Because the truth is, people do not respect kindness that is too easy, too available, too unquestioning. They respect what they must earn. They respect what is given with intention. They respect those who balance kindness with power, generosity with strength, and warmth with unshakable self-respect. So do not stop being kind, but be kind like a king, not like a beggar. Let your kindness be a privilege, not an expectation. Let your presence be felt, not assumed. Let your respect for yourself set the standard for how others will treat you. Because in the end, kindness without wisdom does not inspire gratitude. It invites disrespect.